Why did you change your career?
Motherhood was the very big motivation.
Do you really believe that there is a balance between being a good parent and being a successful entrepreneur?
It's often as well about flexibility.
We do all that self-development when it comes to business, and then with kids we just experiment.
We are often left without any proper guidance.
What's the mindset should be as a parent to improve the relationship with your kids?
Adults have hopefully developed brains, and kids are having developing brains. So that's a big gap as well.
Hi guys, welcome to my new episode, Brands Through Stories. As you've probably heard many times, the main reason why I do everything in my professional life, inspire and help people to create meaningful brands, is my kids and the future generation, because I truly want to leave the better world for them. So my kids are everything to me. They're my driving force, they're my motivation, they're my confidence, the love of my life. But also, they're a bit of stress of my life, and sometimes not even a bit, real stress. So I was, question myself, am I a good mother? Do I spend enough time with my kids? How can I balance being a good mother and also a successful woman and entrepreneur? And I found out that I'm not the only one. And then I happened to meet this amazing woman who opened my eyes and helped me understand what it is to be a good mother and answer some of these questions. So I've decided to use the opportunity of having this podcast and invite her to answer a lot of other questions that I have and hopefully help you to be better parents. So please welcome my guest, Sylvie Ebert, who left the corporate world to establish her own purpose-driven brand, Connected Parenting. The brand that helps people to be happy parents and raise happy kids. Please welcome my guest, Sylvie Ebert.
Thank you, Nina, for having me.
Thank you very much, Sylvie, for finding time. Really honored and happy.
Same here. Thank you.
I know that you were in the corporate world. I don't want to mention the name of the company, but it's very well-known brand. Your career was sorted. You had your place there. You had your consistency in the career. You had everything sorted. And then you decided to change completely the direction and go into something new, something that has nothing to do with your career, and create your own purpose-driven brand that help parents to be happy parents, Connected Parenting. What was the motivation? What happened? Why did you change your career?
Motherhood.
All right.
Motherhood was the very big motivation, because it started with after I actually had my daughter and went back from maternity leave. I was lucky to have 8 months of maternity leave, which gave me a good time with her. But when I came back and I started to reflect on what it actually feels like to start off as a mom and parenthood in general, and what it felt like to start off in the corporate world, I saw a huge difference. Because if you think about it, in the corporate world, there is a lot done for you as an employee. Mm-hmm. You come with a full education, you get to train your skills, attending trainings and workshops to really become better at your job or in your job. Whereas when I reflected on the parenting part, despite the much bigger responsibility we have of raising a human being and helping them launch into this complex world, we are often left without any proper guidance, without a proper education or knowledge, and just thrown into the water and having to navigate our way through, first keeping this baby alive and then navigating through every different phase that comes along, that changes almost every 6 months.
Absolutely. It's true. I've never thought about it. Yeah. You have two responsibilities. The main one is your kids and then your business. And then we do all that self-development when it comes to business. And then with kids, we just experiment.
Yes.
Right? Especially with the first one. There's a lot of experimentation going.
Absolutely. And we learn as we go, and there is no manual. And that what really motivated me to become part of a dramatic shift in family support. And that's when I was moved to research and look for a parent coaching institute that was very, very new at that time still. That's where my journey started, and I never looked back.
Great. Are there a lot of challenges now when you're running your own business now in that field?
Yeah, I mean, for me, having been in the corporate world for 11 years, you know, and having worked since I was 19, having that monthly salary come in every month, and knowing that, yes, I have my hours to work and I have my projects to finish, and then the salary will come anyways every month. That was in the aftermath, I realized that was a calming feeling, you know, that I didn't have to bother about. So not having a steady income was a big challenge for me to accept in the beginning, despite the very big support I had of my husband, of being able to actually leaving the corporate world, to dive into becoming an entrepreneur. He fully supported me and still is along the way. So I'm very thankful for that. But apart from that, it's as well being so many departments at the same time, having to do networking, having to focus on your marketing, having to focus on your sales. Maybe you're not in the mood to network, you know, but you have to do it anyways, because that's part of your different departments of being an entrepreneur. So I think that were challenges for me, to be able to create a structure. And because in a corporate job, you have a structure. Yeah. You know, you have your to-do list, you come in the morning, you have your job description, and everything gives you a certain structure already in place. But knowing what I want to do is fine. But then how do I bring it to life? Yeah. What do I want to communicate? First of all, in the beginning, when I started working with parents, I wasn't sure what I really want to focus on. What do I want to specialize in? That took a big moment for me to really understand I cannot help every parent in this world, and I cannot focus on every challenge they have. What is it that I really want to focus on specifically? You know?
Yeah, I think two things that help a lot of people who change from the corporate to entrepreneur is having a bit purpose. So you just don't do it just for the money. That, you know, bigger purpose which you have is absolutely great. It makes you, you know, motivated and move forward. And being focused, I think it's a great advice, really. Yeah. Being focused makes a big difference. Yeah. And you know what your niche and what are you all about, and people can understand you better.
Exactly.
So welcome then to the entrepreneurial sleepless nights. Exactly. Yeah. I want to ask you now, use this opportunity and ask you again questions about a little bit more about parenting. Is there a big difference between the Middle East parents and the European parents in the way they're bringing up the kids?
I think there is a lot of prejudice around it when it comes to how a Middle Eastern parent parents or a European parent parents. But I think a human as such by nature is extremely immeasurable and complex. Yeah. So putting prejudice how a certain culture would parent is actually almost never accurate. What I realized, though, that Middle Eastern parents, specifically the ones I'm working with, are very much coming off that parent-to-child dynamic, which it was rather more control and fear-based, and they want to move away from that, but want to steer further to a parent with child relationship, where they can focus more on a mutual understanding and respect in their relationship with their children. And it's often a challenge where they weren't parented this way, so they don't really know how. But when when we're figuring out the how, they're so much happier.
So what is that relationship that is so much happier with your kids?
So I would say a lot of us base parental success on how well our kids obey and how well our kids listen. And if you think of it, if you base your success on that type of mindset, on this mindset, we will probably fail 15 times per day. Yeah. Because if you consider the parent-child dynamic, at almost any given moment that we spend with our children, we don't expect the same, we're not interested in the same, we don't need the same, which is really hard to combine, So if we, instead of focusing on them needing to listen and them needing to obey, focusing on how we can intentionally create a communication that brings us to that mutual understanding and respect between ourselves and our children, connection can grow tremendously. And confidence can grow, and intention, and therefore happiness.
And I'm sure it's a lot of science behind it, and which we can't cover really in one episode. But if you could please give us, 2, 3 mindset, or what's the mindset should be as a parent to improve the relationship with your kids? What's the most important?
I think it starts with the awareness that the parent-child dynamic is really extreme. I mean, if we compare it to any other relationship, the gap between what a parent needs, expects, and is interested in is very big towards what the child needs. And if we can start by being aware of that first, and then bridge that gap with intentional communication and connection, I think that can move us closer to what lies close to our heart, to have a good relationship with our kids.
I remember you told me a little bit about that gap. Yeah, the gap between kids and parents' development and expectations.
Yes,
would be great if you could share it again, because it made me think a lot, actually. That yes, true. The way I look at things is not the way my kids look at those things.
Yes. So as I mentioned, it starts with us having very different interests and needs and expectations at almost any given moment we spend with our children. And then as well, if you think about it, adults have hopefully developed brains, and kids are having developing brains. So that's a big gap as well. And the third one is actually, if you consider, we're not even in the same time zone oftentimes. Like, adults often think past and future, whereas kids, especially younger kids, they mostly inhabit the present, from which we can learn a lot, right? So it's actually not to our surprise then, if we reflect on these factors, that we very often slip into correcting our children rather to fit our expectations and needs, while forgetting that the relationship is primary and that overcorrection cannot build connection.
This is so true. And all these mindfulness courses teach us how to be in the present moment.
Eckhart Tolle, right?
In that present moment, and we're somewhere in the future, in the past. Why have you done this? And it's a very interesting perspective, or it's a very interesting point.
Yeah, and I think you just bring me to that thought that kids are tremendous, powerful teachers for us. If we allow to learn from, if we allow ourselves to put our ego on the shelf and learn from them, it's tremendously fulfilling in learning from them.
Yeah. I want to ask you something. Do you really believe that there is a balance between being a good parent and being a successful entrepreneur? or businessman?
I would
Businesswoman.
say life is messy as such, right? And our days, and our days are extremely busy. I think we have to ask ourselves, what is balance for me? You know, what do I expect from myself as a business or woman or entrepreneur, and what do I expect from myself as a parent? And I think, of course, we can create intention there and approach our routine in an intentional way and build it along our day. But balance, our days are not often happening as we wish them to happen, right? As you just told me earlier, you had so many to-dos on your list, and at the same time, your kids are sick, you have to attend to them. So it's often as well about flexibility.
I think it's a very interesting thing that, as I mentioned, I'm trying to find the most effective way of working to be super time management effective and achieve a lot this year and hopefully in the future years. So I put the whole list of priorities together, plan my days, plan my week until I wake up on Monday and my kids are sick. And then everything has to change. And then all the questions go back into my mind. What is right? Do I go on these business trips and meetings, or no? All I want is to be with my kids, and then all the priority, all the time management went just down the drain.
Yeah.
And all I did actually, and I caught myself with this mistake. I was just stressing out yesterday, whole day. All I had is stress, rather than focusing on something.
Yeah, I think we could easily slip into stressing ourselves when the day doesn't go as per plan. But I believe if we can sit down with ourselves after we realize that, okay, this is not how it's going to happen today, what is the most important part? What are three things that I really need to get done, you know? And then maybe just choose 3 instead of 5. We maybe think we want to do 5, but maybe let's reduce it to 3 and really focus on those 3 things. Because think about it, if we ask too much of ourselves and then at the end of the day it's not done, you know, the frustration is gonna most likely kick in at the end of the day when we couldn't do the things that we wanted to do.
Absolutely, and it's exactly what happened with me yesterday. So I stressed out the whole day. In the evening, I felt very sad about kids being sick, me, you know, stressing out about things, and basically it didn't help anyone. So if I were to take back yesterday, so the first thing I should have done, okay, what is the priority? Of course, kids the priorities. What do I do with them? I take them to the doctor. I prepare tea for them. I look after them. I read for them, right? And then what could I achieve with focusing on my kids in terms of my work, and put 3 things that are achievable and be not kind on myself, right?
Yes, and maybe start with the timing. What time windows do I have? Do I have 1 hour? Do I have 2 hours? What is realistic? And you have experience from how much time certain things took for you, you know? So looking at the time and then looking at the activity in terms of at the to-dos in terms of priority, and really be realistic.
Yeah. And be ready that there's no thing like 100% time management exists.
Yeah.
100% effectiveness.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Now, what is this? So how much time? I don't want to say how much time is enough. I don't think it's ever enough. You want to be with the parents and kids, with your kids, and kids want to be with you. But when do you feel that it's a sufficient time, it's good time, quality time that you've spent with the kids? So how much is enough? Let me put it in there.
I mean, that's a big one, right? When I coach parents or moms, with moms, that mom's guilt is real. And many parents, especially moms, I would like to say, they beat themselves up over not having enough time with their kids. And when you focus on what's not working, that usually leads you to stress. But when you can actually focus on what opportunity do I have within the time that I have, it can be really steering away from wanting to have enough time towards, hey, what is the time I have and how do I want to put quality to this time? And for me, quality is connection, you know?
If you can elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, so connection, really seeing each other, spending time with each other. It doesn't matter what it is, but really being in each other's presence, you know. And connection is what will give you that emotional imprint when you look back, when you have that memory, you know. Because if you think about it, the memory is always stronger when it's linked to a strong emotion. The stronger the emotion, the better you remember that moment, whether it's a negative or a positive moment. And I think the more we can focus on having really strong connections during this time is a good one.
So it's not about, I spent 5 hours with them, but during that time I answered messages, and then I thought about something, about work, by being with them. It's more, I'd rather spend an hour with them, but without my phone, being really engaged with them.
Yeah. Being engaged, giving each other the feeling that I see you, I hear you, you matter, and really being in their world as well, being interested about what they say. And when you guys decide on what you want to play or what activity you want to do, or if you just want to lay there and watch a movie, enjoy it. Enjoy the moment.
Another question, how could I help myself from being nervous and angry sometimes? And I know 100% that sometimes it's not just because of kids behave badly, but it's me being stressed maybe because of work. What would be that magic pill to stop myself from being angry at them or in that moment?
Well, there is no magic pill, right? Just to crush your bubble, to burst your bubble, there is no magic pill. But there is a quite powerful workshop that I do with parents where we focus on a brain-compatible approach of discipline, where we focus on 2 parts basically. One part is how can we help our children when they're emotionally overwhelmed, going from a reactive to a receptive brain state. And the other part that we focus on is how can we help ourselves as parent to move from a reaction to a response.
So if I can bring it to the very basic example, if we can do it. So let's say my daughter, my son is very angry, doesn't want to get dressed and start screaming because they're still very small. Start screaming. What do I do in this situation? What I usually do is start screaming back. Put your shoes on. I have to go. We're late. We're always late.
Yeah.
It's always stress because everyone is late.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Okay. So if you notice and if you track back and go back to that moment where your daughter is screaming or your kids are screaming, are you focusing rather on your kids or you're focusing on you, what's going on with you? What is your thought process in that moment? Is it like, I want this to stop?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
I want to stop. I want them to put shoes on and go follow me.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's converse. Let's talk. Just go with me.
Yeah. Luckily you're aware of the parent-child dynamic, right? You know that in that moment, it's what I expect is not what they expect, right? Yeah. But I need to get those kids out of the door. But in the very moment, what we focus on during this workshop or during the session is really steering away the focus on the child towards ourselves. Because very often we don't realize what's going on in our body, you know. Taking a step back and realizing it's a perceived threat. It's not a real threat. There is no emergency going on. There is no safety emergency going on. It's a perceived threat. So the threat on our body, let's notice our body signals. Is it heart palpitations? What's going on here with me at the moment, you know? And then another coping tool could be just taking some breaths, you know? Practicing some breathing, and many parents would tell me, but I don't have time for this in this moment.
We're late.
Well, you do, you know, because it doesn't take 2 minutes to breathe. It takes 5 seconds, and you do have those 5 seconds. So it really is about rewiring our brain and practicing a calming compass and accessing different coping tools. Another coping tool could be asking ourselves in them, what do I feel right now? And what do I need right now? If what I feel is anger and impatience, maybe it's a good idea to tell my children, hey guys, I need a minute, I'll be right back. And you go to the room and lay down, or you go to the kitchen and take a glass of water. It's really focusing on attending to yourself, to bring yourself from that reactive state to that receptive state, where you then can respond with intention, you know?
Do you know, while you were talking about it, it brought me back to the beginning of our conversation, is that we would not behave like that in the business world, right? I mean, or if you're a manager who screams at your employees, it's a very old school, I would say, right?
Yeah.
We try to control, we try to understand, we try to motivate. But with our kids, we let ourselves sometimes to just go wild and scream and get angry and impatient.
Yeah, I mean...
It's incredible, yeah.
Absolutely. So, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I think once we're aware about this extreme dynamic, right? Let's give credit to business relationships. I mean, we are dealing mostly with adults, and we mostly have the same interests, we have the same vision, we work on the same activities or projects. So there is not a big gap in terms of interests or needs. But when it comes to working or communicating with kids, there is a huge gap, and that gap has not to be it cannot be underestimated. But I think if we can start with being aware of that gap and wanting to intentionally bridge it, we can then really move towards accessing our prefrontal cortex of impulse control and emotional regulation and strategic planning on how we want to approach situations. We have the capacity because we have fully developed brains. Our brains are fully developed, and we can switch ourselves from a reactive state to a receptive state. And our kids are yet to learn that, and they need help with that.
Sylvia, I love it. I think this topic deserves much more time, a lot of time to discuss, and I would love to explore it further. And I think maybe for the next episode, we'll organize and bring some businesswomen also.
Sure.
Definitely, we need to take this conversation forward. There's a lot of things I've learned in just this short period of time by just talking to you like that.
Thank you.
So I always ask my guests 3 questions. So they always oriented towards how to be a successful entrepreneur. But I want to rephrase them slightly with you. And I want to rephrase them to how to be a successful parent. So 3 questions. The first one, what do we need to do regularly to be a good parent? Second question, what we shouldn't be afraid of to be a good parent? Mm-hmm. And the third thing, what we should stay away from to be a good parent?
So what we should do regularly, connect. I think at the end of the day, we want to base our success on how connected we are with our children. and how we can create that intentional communication between what we need and what they need in a respectful way. So at the end of the day, I often reflect on how much connection was happening of the time that I was spending with my kids and how much correction was happening.
Nice.
And I often see that the cooperation is much better from my kids when there was more connection than correction.
Very nice.
Yeah.
What about that we shouldn't be afraid of?
Messing up, doing mistakes. Because relationships are messy, but they're repairable. And I think the moment where we realize that we messed up, we're giving ourselves a chance to repair. And I think the beauty of kids is that they are instantly forgiving. And even if you realize an hour later that you messed up or you're guilty about it, go and repair. Say sorry. Sorry that I shouted. Sorry that I was impatient. I will try to do it differently next time. Even days later, you remember when we were at the park and I shouted at you, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have done that. That really creates two things for our children. One is the modeling that how repair can feel and look like. And two, that really relationships are messy, but they can be repairable. They are repairable.
Excellent. What about stay away from?
I would say staying away from overcorrecting children.
Yeah.
Because it really creates disconnection. If we can stay away from that and punishing our children, that would be the second part, so overcorrection and punishment. Because punishment really is a distraction from the lesson we want them to learn, and it creates disconnection. And the respect that we get through a punishment is really mostly fear-based.
So you're saying that there shouldn't be any punishment at all?
No.
Wow.
I don't punish my kids.
Really?
No, I don't
Interesting.
punish my kids, and I encourage every parent to not punish, because I think there is a big difference between punishment and action-related consequences. So let me give you an example.
Okay. Yeah.
If, for example, I tell my son who is late when we're getting late, okay? I wanted to leave the playground, and I called him so many times to leave, and I'm getting stressed, and we're getting late, okay? And I'm telling him, that's it. Next time, we're not coming back here. I'm not bringing you back to the park because you got us late. That's your punishment, Another one, when I frame it in a way where I use an action-related consequence, I will tell him, we got really late last time. So next time we will have to calculate more time. We have to either leave earlier or we have to, So this is an action-related consequence where we learn from a mistake and we kind of, try to do it better next time. Or if my son shouts towards me, I tell him, that's it. No TV for you today, It's really a punishment that has nothing to do with the action that just happened.
So how should you...
So an action-related consequence could be, hey, when you're shouting, I'm really not in the mood to listen to you. Can you please talk to me in a nicer way?
Yeah. I love it, and I want to continue. Unfortunately, our episodes are a bit short, but we're definitely going to take this topic forward. So thank you so much. Thank you
for
Sylvie.
having me, Nina.
Guys, and please, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please like us, share us, comment. If you have any questions for Sylvie, please ask in the comment box. And we'll put also the link to her company, Connecting Parenting. And we're definitely going to discuss this topic even further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank
Good?
you.
I loved it. I learned so much again.
My